I just said goodbye to my final Sigma art lens. I just sold the last one of 3 that I had, and I'm kind of sad. I'm gonna miss those beautiful little bricks / weapons / beautiful 1.4 lenses. So I thought I would make a video to tell you these 3 things. If you are looking to get a Sigma art lens, you need to know these 3 things before you do. I have a lot of emotional connection to my Sigma art lenses, and that's because in 2019, I very radically, with my wife, changed and rebranded our wedding business and went in a whole new direction. And part of that was purchasing these Sigma art lenses. And they, I won't lie, kind of changed photography for me and changed wedding photography for me. So I have some great things to say about them, and then I have one bad thing to say. We started using these lenses in 2019. We used the Sigma 50mm 1.4 and the Sigma 35mm 1.4, and they were an incredible part of us kind of taking our wedding photography to the next level. I pulled up a few sample images as well to go through them with you and just to talk a little bit more what it was like to shoot these lenses for over 3 years. Number one is that these lenses took my photography to another level. So I don't really know how to say it beyond that. Like, I think that's just like the point and everything I have to say about it. Before this, I had a few 1.8 lenses. I had a 70-200 and a 24-70 that I was using, and getting these lenses did so much for me, and it really turned me into a complete fanatic about having prime lenses and the beauty of having, you know, a 1.4 piece of glass in your camera bag, because it was so beautiful to shoot with. The image quality was crisp, the colors were beautiful. I thought these lenses had a really nice, unique look to them. I don't think, the bokeh I don't think was overly kind of like soft to where it had no character. I thought these lenses felt like professional lenses. And if you're interested to bring up your photography to another level, like, these lenses will do it for you. These will put you into the professional category if you learn how to use them and learn how to use them well. And a really important part of that is the focus, and that's my last point. So make sure you watch to the end and get that last point, because that is key into getting the most out of this lens that you can. The second thing is that these lenses felt so great. They're definitely heavy. Like when I first got them, I was like, wow, this thing feels like a weapon. It's so heavy, and it's like, you know what I'm talking about if you've used these lenses before. They are very solidly constructed. I dropped the 50mm on a few occasions, and the lens was fine and continued to work. And there was like no dents or anything. I don't even know how that was possible, but they seem to be really well constructed. And there was this element of feeling professional that it gave me this new sense of, I don't know, I felt special. I felt like I had a professional camera in my hand. The weight of them was like, okay, I've got a lens here. And so I know that's a little bit like, those are not specific stats or anything, but I felt really good when I used these lenses. So the first 2 things were all the amazing, wonderful things of this lens. They really were amazing. The last thing is that the focus, the fine-tuned focusing on these lenses, it is their downfall, 100%. If you are really kind of anal about focusing, as I am, and where that focus falls, is it focusing far or is it short, especially when you're shooting at 1.4, that line of focus, that depth of field is very important and very noticeable. So what I got very early on when I got these lenses was actually the Sigma lens dock. And that enables you to plug your lens into the computer and then fine tune the focusing. So this is like a whole ordeal. And this is the thing that I hated about these lenses, is that I had to go in a couple times and like keep getting the focus right until it was right. So I think it really depends on the lens that you get and the type of camera that you use, but sometimes these lenses can be a bit off on the focus. And one of the lenses that I had a serious case of this, and it took me quite a while in order to set up the camera and do all the optimizations in order to get the lens like right on focus. Now, when that did happen and I got it all perfect and everything was looking sharp and 1.4 was like, you know, right on the eyes when I actually focused on the eyes, they were beautiful and it was amazing. And I never needed to refocus them after that. But you should be aware of that because that's a big frustration point, especially if you're not maybe good at like, I don't know, doing that like calibration with the lens. It could be frustrating. So that's something to think about getting these lenses. Otherwise, they're quite amazing. Okay, so now I want to show you some photos. I just pulled up a variety of images from different areas to kind of give you an idea of what these lenses will do for you. And I think this is a really great example of what the 50mm did. And that's just like, it's this smooth, crisp, beautiful photo that if you look at the bokeh, like it has some character. And I think that's the thing that I liked right away from these lenses is that it had real character. It didn't feel like this kind of like soft, just like soft, super smooth image. It had some interest and some kind of grippiness in the photo. And that's what I really liked about them. This is just like a fun flat lay shot that I think I used for Instagram. This is another great example, a shot of my wife Allie and I on a wedding day back in I think this was 2018 or 2019. But again, this is a great example of like what that bokeh does in the background. This was shot at 1.4. And so you can see like we're in pretty good focus for being at 1.4 and you kind of get that like dreamy looking background. And that's, I think, the great thing about these lenses. If you're looking to shoot at 1.4, at 1.8 or 2.0, these are some great lenses for you. I think just like the color, the cleanness, the sharpness of these lenses were really nice. And this is where I really learned to shoot a 50mm prime lens all the time because I shot it and I just like fell in love with it and I couldn't stop shooting 50mm after I got these lenses. Even for this, I had to crop in pretty tight for this image, but the focus distance isn't too bad for the 50mm. I was even able to kind of get this ring shot and it still worked without having a macro lens on me. Again, going back, this is another 1.4 image, just that like dreamy creaminess of that lens is what made me like really love it. And you can see that. As you can see, I wanted to show you a few detail images because I thought this lens was had a good variety of what you could do with it. Like you could get some great like close-up images. You could, it didn't feel too tight. It still felt you could get like the environment if you backed up. And I just felt like you could do it all. And that's the thing that I love about a 50mm, and that's what I loved about using the Sigma Art 50mm. This is another very clear, crisp image, right on focus after I did all the calibration. But also you see that little bit of character in the back in the trees here. And also, some of the flower petals in the front. Like look at the colors of the color, the dreaminess, the sharpness. I know I keep saying the same words over and over again, but it is what it is, okay? I really loved this little set, so I'm showing you a few photos from this. Oh, this is not even my photo. This is Allie's photo, but okay, you get the point. This was also on a 50mm. So we bought two of them so that both Allie and I would have them. And we love these lenses so much. And it was really, at least back then, it was our primary lenses for both of us because we were still shooting a lot of digital. Here's a 35. I know I'm not showing a ton of 35mm because I didn't actually use it a ton. We did use it, but I would say 90% of the time I was shooting with the 50mm. But when I did use the 35, I really loved it as well. It has, you know, a lot of the similar characteristics to the 50mm, but it doesn't have as much kind of punchiness because it's a wider focal length. You're not gonna get that kind of dramatic bokeh in the background that you would with the 50, but still an incredible pair to have those two lenses together. This was a 50mm shot. Okay, here's a few other ones that I just pulled up. These are all shot from the 50 1.4, 50 1.4, 50 1.4, and then this is a 35 1.4. So this was actually, I almost held on to the 35 1.4 just because I honestly had so much attachment to these lenses because I felt like I had just like grown up so much with these lenses, and I had grown and learned so many things. I didn't want to let go of it. So this was actually shot with the new mirrorless system, my Nikon Z6 II. And it actually worked really well with the adapter. The focus worked pretty well, but not as good as the native mirrorless, 35mm lenses. Even though I loved these lenses and they did so much for me, I will say the upgraded transition to the new, Z series mirrorless lenses, I couldn't quite justify keeping them anymore. But if you still have an SLR camera, or you're looking at getting maybe a more affordable 50mm lens, I would say these Sigma art lenses are something that you should definitely look at because they definitely took my photography to a new level, and I think I will forever be grateful for having them.